Well, good evening, y'all. Um, nice southern greeting there. So I got a request for this video. Um, as I talked about earlier, I like anime, and I also like um, comic book movies. And if you look at the background, there's a picture of me, Chris Evans. Um, that was my first Ace Comic Con in Chicago. It was at the Navy Pier. So I have never met anybody uh, this famous before. And, well, I did, kind of. I met Lucy Lawless, who played Xena Warrior Princess in Detroit MotorCon, um, May 2018. And that was my first time meeting a celebrity that I had seen on TV. And I was super chill. I talked to her. She was like, uh, hey, your name sounds uh, like it's German. And I was like, no, I got named after a cousin. And I was real cool. And she was like, hey, I like your Doctor Who shirt. And I was like, oh, that's cool. I love that show. So she was like, do you remember telephone boxes? And I'm like, yeah, I'm older than I look. And she said, you never can tell these days. And I said, that's true. I shook her hand and I said, thank you. It was nice meeting you. So it was cool. Well, I think she reached out her hand first. But anywho, so Chris Evans, I met October 2018. And I'm a big Marvel fan. I love comic book movies, etc. And um, I had to choose from Tom Hiddleston and um, Chris Evans. And I was like, who do I choose? I went with Chris Evans. And I went by myself. Couldn't get anybody to go with me, even though I asked. And I was like, you can get on the picture with me. But they were like, no. So I was really nervous when it came to my turn. And so um, I was about to hyperventilate before I got there. And um, this girl went ahead of me because they were like, oh, she was like, look, I messed up my picture. I'm not jumping ahead, but I got to do a retake. And I'm like, sure, but I was annoyed anyway because I was just like, okay, this is making me wait even longer. So then I get to my turn and there was a line and I didn't really want to come up to the line. But the lady was like, yeah, come up to the line because it's almost your turn. And I was like, oh my gosh, in my head. And so it got to be my turn and I just freeze. I just see him across the room and I'm like, oh my God, in my head, that is him the whole time. I was like praying before, please don't let me fangirl. Please don't let me like fangirl, like pass out or be like, oh my God, it's Chris Evans. When I didn't do that, I did just the opposite. I looked at him and I was like, oh my gosh, like I was frozen. And then I walked across and I looked at him and I was just like, I shrugged my shoulders, hug, hug. I mouthed the words hug. I didn't even say anything to him. And he just shook his head and smiled. And if you look at that picture, how super happy I look in that picture. And it was it was pretty cool. And then I was just like, oh my gosh, I got his picture. And then I walked around. I was super thirsty. And I got this $5 like 7 Up. But I walked around and I was pretty happy with that. Later on, I almost skipped a part. So I got the VIP, so I got his autograph as you see on the picture later on. So I was standing in line with this one girl, and she was like from Japan. I'm sorry, not Japan. She was from Japan. And she was like dressed like she was going out on a date. And I was like, where's she going? She dressed like she finna go to a club or something. Had high heel shoes, sparkly shirt, and a skirt on. And she was carrying a bag. It was super heavy. I guess because she was going to leave to go to the airport from the hotel. And she was like, she had an internship in Canada. And she just flew over in like from Toronto or something just to meet Chris Evans. I found all that information out by waiting in line. I felt sorry for the girl, so I helped her carry her book bag. So I was talking to her, and she was like, "Oh, I hope I don't freeze. I hope I get to say something." And I was like, "Don't feel bad, because I didn't say anything when I got this picture." And so again, when it got close to my turn, somebody jumped ahead because she couldn't find her little voucher that said she got an autograph. And when she found her voucher, they let her go ahead of me, and I was like, okay, this again. So I was like, oh my gosh, all right, it got up to my turn. Well, that lady with the voucher had like a mini Star Wars, Star Star Wars like Falcon kind of thing, because Chris Evans liked that, and she had a mini Dodger, his dog, like, and it looked like a replica of his dog, which I thought was super cool. And she gave this to Chris, and here I come, empty-handed. And so it got to my turn, and I still wasn't saying anything because I was still freaked out. And he looked up at me and he said, "Oh, you don't have a gift for me? You don't have a mini Dodger?" And I was like, is he talking to me? And he was trying to make a joke, but my brain was not getting it, you know what I'm saying? So, um, I'm from the South and have a Southern accent, but magically, I had a accent that was like Valley Girl. Because I was like, no, sorry. Maybe next time. Like, for real. That was my accent, boy. And I was like, who is this chick talking? And he kind of shook his head, was like, oh my gosh, I tried to make her laugh and she didn't even do anything. So he just signed my name. I wouldn't even talk to him, didn't tell him how to pronounce it or nothing. So he didn't bother me. He probably like, this girl about to pass out or she might be weird. I don't know what he was thinking. But so he gives it to me and I turn to leave and I was like, that can't be the only thing that I say to this dude. So I'm like, I might never see him again. So before I knew it, my foot pivoted. I turned back around and I was like, and he looked, maybe kind of scared, I don't know, but he looked and I reached out my hands and I said, thank you. It was nice to meet you. And he didn't leave me hanging because I thought he might for a minute, but I was kind of looking at him like he better shake my hand. But that was the most aggressive I was like the whole time meeting him. So that was my first encounter. Unforgettable. And you can see that picture. I looked super happy and I was hugging on him like we were dating. I wish. But anyway, that's that story.